What I wanted to cover in this video is a cumulative trauma. Over the years, I've talked to a lot of injured workers who didn't think that they had a workers' compensation injury because nothing specific happened. No box fell on their head, no knife cut to the hand, but they describe what in workers' compensation is a cumulative trauma. It's an injury that happened over time. So lifting heavy boxes in a warehouse and moving them from one place to another for years and eventually developing low back pain can be a cumulative trauma. Typing all day long on a computer and eventually developing carpal tunnel syndrome can be a cumulative trauma. The Labor Code defines injuries as one of two different types. It's Labor Code section 3208.1, and it defines a specific injury, which is what most people think of when they think of a workers' comp injury. That definition reads that it is occurring as the result of one incident or exposure which causes disability or need for medical treatment. That's what people think of with workers' comp. They went to pick up a box and it was too heavy and they felt a pop in their back and now they have a back injury. That's a specific injury. But the second part of that statute defines a cumulative trauma. It defines it as occurring as repetitive mentally or physically traumatic activities extending over a period of time, the combined effect of which causes any disability or need for medical treatment. The date of a cumulative injury shall be determined under Section 5412. So it's an injury causing disability or need for medical treatment. And if you look at that other Labor Code section, 5412, it provides the definition with regards to the date of a cumulative trauma. People don't think of a cumulative trauma as being workers' comp because there's nothing specific happening on one date. I've worked in the warehouse for years and now my back hurts. There's not one date that someone can point to usually to say, you know what, it really started April 12, 2019. It's just an injury that comes on over time. So Labor Code section 5412 defines the date of injury in cases of a cumulative trauma as the date upon which the employee first suffered disability therefrom and either knew or, in the exercise of reasonable diligence, should have known that the disability was caused by present or prior employment. So there's two parts to that statute there for this date of injury of the cumulative trauma. There needs to be disability. So your doctor takes you off work. Your doctor imposes work restrictions that your employer cannot accommodate. You go in for surgery. There's disability that takes place due to a cumulative trauma. The second part is that you knew or you reasonably should have known, and the courts have basically defined that as being a doctor told you that what's going on is likely due to your work. So if you go to your doctor, you complain about numbness and tingling in your hands, especially at night. You're not sure what it is. The doctor says, I don't know either. It seems like you have carpal tunnel syndrome. At that point, you likely don't have knowledge or knowledge that you reasonably should have that it's due to work. But if you go to your doctor and the doctor says, you know what, Ms. Jones, because of all the typing you do, your work has likely led to the carpal tunnel syndrome. Or Mr. Jones goes to the doctor and the doctor says, what I expect is that all of the lifting of heavy boxes in your warehouse job has caused your low back injury. At that point, you have knowledge that your injury was likely due to your employment. And because of that, it can be either your current employment or conceivably either prior employment if you stopped working somewhere several months back, but you never realized that your pain or condition was due to that job until a doctor told you. It's probably the job that you left a few months ago. That's what has caused this condition. So the point of this video is to dispel the notion that a workers' compensation injury has to happen on one day. It might happen over time, maybe weeks, maybe years, as the cumulative effect of the injury builds up. And then the date of injury for accumulative trauma is when there's disability and when you know or reasonably should have known. So keep in mind two types of injuries in workers' compensation: specific and cumulative trauma.